Hey there, welcome back to Afternoon Garage. So it's time to do some wiring. I think this has already had lights on it, so it's not going to be a lot to see here. I think what I'm going to do is just take the ends of the wires that I had and probably just tape on the new wire and pull new wire through. I think the way it was wired was the wires were actually put inside the main loom, so it's going to be a little tricky. One thing I wanted to show was, you can get over here, is how they do the battery. So the battery is behind the rear seat here. Like that. So there's your OPTIMA REDTOP, and they always have these cargo things in here to make sure that the cargo doesn't slide around. Piece of carpet from your grandma's living room, and then I've installed this disconnect switch back here because I store my vehicles for a long period of time. I don't like to have them hooked up to any power. So yeah, yes, this is a piece of plywood. This is how they come. This is how they're made from the factory. It's just a piece of plywood with some blocks glued onto it. The wires come into this box, and I think what I'm just going to do is just attach it and then simply just pull the wires through. Let's pull some wire. Here's that piece we made last week. Let's put it in the car. So basically we tested it on the bench and we know that it worked fine on the bench. So installed it in the vehicle and we get some weird flashing things going on. It kind of tells me that, that there might be a voltage issue. We can start right back at the source, the 12 volt battery, and start there. So about 12.5 volts from there. Then the input of the DC to DC converter. So listen a little bit, it's in, you can tell it's loaded. It's shifting between 11.5 and 11.9. So we'll go on the output. And that's a real strong and stable 5 volts here, 5.03 volts. So now we'll go on the input of this right here. This is our motion controller. Whoa, 3.5 volts. That's clearly not enough. So we're dropping some pretty good voltage on our number 2 test lead here. Hooking these LEDs up in parallel series combinations, make sure and connect it directly to the power source and not through anything like this, because this undoubtedly will not have, in fact this is kind of getting warm here, so it definitely have its performance affected if it's not getting a constant solid 5 volts. So yeah, let's wire it directly to our DC to DC converter and we should be fine. No more disco lights. Disco lights are cool though. Just not here. I got the wire pulled. That seems to be going along pretty well. Everything's kind of going to go and get wired to the center console. Now I'm going to worry about that switch panel that I talked about last week. Really kind of find those switches to be a little bit something made by Fisher-Price. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to machine a switch panel out of a piece of 1/8 inch aluminum. I'm going to be using an IEMCO MAXIMAT 7 today with the mill attachment, and I figure I'll just use a block of wood, kind of stabilize that, put that in the mill, and then I'll mill out 4 switch holes. The switches I'm going to be using are just standard power window switches. We'll take some measurements on those and find out exactly what size they are. One important thing is I don't want them to move around at all. So I'm going to have to make sure that the holes are cut to the right size. And that's where this machine comes along, because it'll be able to make some really accurate holes in that piece of aluminum I'm going to use. So I made a template here and I cut a piece of 1/8 inch aluminum and bent it. Kind of bent it at a 60-degree angle. I'm going to have to take some careful measurements with these switches I got. I don't want any slop in the switches, like I said before. I have to make sure when I take these measurements, they're going to be exactly the size so I can make a template for each one. I think I'll just make a single template out of cardstock and I can position it however I want. Looks like I'm going to use 4 switches. Made some measurements and wrote it on a card. Transfer the template to the aluminum for each individual switch, and then I'll cut out each hole with the mill. We got the part marked, now it's time to start throwing some chips. Just remember, wear your safety glasses.